Welcome to the Motorcycles or Drugs podcast, a show where we speak with artists and engineers, connoisseurs, and problem solvers from the moto world and beyond. I'm Henri Boulanger.
And I'm Gary Boulanger.
We're a father-son team that has collaborated for years through storytelling and imagery, often combining our creativity with the adventure and community we've found on two-wheeled machines. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We first met Zahn McClarnon after we rolled into the Buffalo Chip at the 2018 Sturgis Rally. Parking our Harleys, we introduced ourselves to the actor who brought his signature gravitas to shows like Westworld, Fargo, and Longmire. He's currently starring in the show Dark Winds and shares executive producing duties with Robert Redford and George R.R. Martin. In this episode, Zahn talks a little about Hollywood and a lot more about his motorcycle origin story, riding all around California and most roads west of the Mississippi, all the bikes he's owned, where he enjoys riding most, and what bike he'd love to have. Zahn McClarnon is coming up next.
I love the West, man. I love the desert. I love the high desert. I love the Rocky Mountains. I've been Colorado touring around so many times, and Montana, Wyoming is gorgeous, beautiful. I've been pretty much everywhere in the West, on the bike, quite a few times, quite a few journeys, This is Zahn McClarnon, and you are listening to the Motorcycles Are Drugs podcast.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man.
It's really good to see you, and we're excited to get to know you a little better.
Thank you, man. It's good to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me on. I love talking about bikes, man.
Perfect.
I don't do a lot of podcasts.
We do too.
I don't. I get asked quite a bit to do podcasts, and I don't. They're usually about the business and, my career and all that shit. Can I cuss on here? I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, so when you guys asked me, I was like, and then you said Craig did it, Craig Johnson, and I became interested. I've never been I like talking about bikes. I mean, I've been around bikes for all my life, or most of my life, last 30 years at least, So talking about bikes has got my attention, and so I appreciate you guys asking me to come on.
Well, it's our pleasure as well, because we've met so many wonderful personalities because of the bike. I mean, Here's a great example. Sturgis Bike Rally 2018, Henri and I get off the bikes at the Buffalo Chip, swing our legs off, and I look over and I go, "Hey, there's the actor Zahn from Longmire." He goes,
that's
"No."
Right, man, we met. Good. I'm sorry.
And he goes, "No, it's the actor Zahn from Westworld." And we look at each other. I had not seen Westworld. He had not seen Longmire.
Yeah.
But we were both right.
I forgot all about that. Now I remember, man. We were right by all the booths and stuff. I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You guys, wow. You didn't remind me of that. I was like, who am I talking to?
It was a crazy day. I don't think I've seen that many motorcycles and motorcyclists in one place. And there's that sphere around Sturgis where you're getting closer and closer, and there's just more and more bikes. Yeah. And it's just more and more Harleys, and all the other brands kind of drop away, and then you end up. How many people does that town normally have?
Like 4,000 people.
Yeah. It gets up to
explode.
600,000 people during Sturgis or something like that. I've been up there 3 or 4 times, and it's a strange place to go to now. I like the Buffalo Chip. I love the music and all that, but it's changed quite a bit. Or maybe I've changed. I don't know. I don't know if I should say this on a podcast. It's a little nationalistic.
That was starting to creep in 2018.
Yeah, it's just
I could get a little bit of that.
You know, the Sturgis is in the middle of Lakota land, and when I spent a lot of time in South Dakota. My mom lived in South Dakota and spent a lot of time on the Pine Ridge Reservation and Rapid City. I'm going up there in June to do a commencement for the Ogallala Lakota College. And it's just, it's surrounded by what we call the Pahasapa, which is the Black Hills. It's the center of the universe for the Lakota people. And there's no Indians up there, I mean, I saw maybe 2 or 3, natives up there. And it's just, it's turned into, I don't know. It's, with that guy we had in office for so long, for 4 years, and it's just turned into a big Trump rally up there a bit,
Yeah, we noticed that in 18. I think we parked our bikes outside the chip when we were going into the to watch Flat Track.
Mm-hmm.
And that evening after we saw you, and I almost got run over by a huge float, a Trump float, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, no parade in sight, but there was a float.
And
yeah,
and what's funny too, Zahn, is I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We never talked about politics, sex, or religion.
Yeah.
Catholic. My parents were Democrat because my dad worked for the union for Procter and Gamble.
Mm.
Somehow I voted for Reagan.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
that's fine.
Yeah,
I have a lot of conservative leanings myself. I really do. I just don't. I mean, if it was the right Republican, I would vote Republican. I grew up reading quite a bit of Ayn Rand. The libertarian stuff, and it's that specific person that I think is very, very dangerous for this country. And I would vote conservative if it was the right person, or like Reagan. No, I don't want to. I don't. Sturgis is. I've enjoyed myself up there, and I love the people at the Buffalo Chip Campground. They're wonderful, and they treat me really well, and they've always been kind to me. It's just the outside of that it's turned into something that it's not that enjoyable to be at. I'm sure I'll go back, but one day, and it may change a little bit, but getting into politics on the podcast here.
Well,
out the gate.
how about we pivot on?
Yeah.
You had said Ayn Rand, right?
Yeah.
You want to pivot from politics to Ayn Rand?
Yeah,
Well, no. Hear me out. I've got a thread here. So, Zahn, you and I exchanged a little bit on Instagram when you had posted the quote from Neil Peart, right?
Yeah.
And that was my last Cycle World column that I published.
Oh, you did.
It was that the link that I sent you 100 miles before breakfast, right? How he was so dedicated. He wrote several albums worth of lyrics based on his obsession, passion, dedication to her and her writings.
Yeah. The ideas. He was, the ideas are, they're just, it's objectivism. It's a rational philosophy, and it gets a bad name, I think, with the selfishness stuff, the virtue of selfishness, and it's about individual rights. That's libertarian. I love Neil Peart, and he's an amazing lyricist. I've read everything he's written, all of his books, and he's always inspired me to get on my bike and travel, and I've done quite a bit of long distance trips, in the United States, obviously on tarmac. I haven't been up to done any Europe or South America or anything like that. But Neil Peart has always been, even before I knew he was into Ayn Rand. When I found Ayn Rand, I realized that Neil Peart a lot of his lyrics were based on some of her books, Anthem and 2112, and so I've always been a big fan of both. Actually, I mean, I think my philosophy has changed a little bit, growing older and older. I think it's an open kind of philosophy, that Ayn Rand objectivism is. I think it's not a closed system. I think we grow as human beings, and it's not closed, and you can adapt certain things, and you get different viewpoints and different ideas when you get older. But I still respect Ayn Rand's ideas quite a bit, even in my older age.
Yeah. Well, it's good food for thought. I mean, you and I were both born in 1966, and what we've seen with technology, with politics, things that have literally changed the world. I know our parents and grandparents saw quite a bit, but I think I like to believe that our generation has seen maybe a bit too much technology that has changed things,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
But all that being said, you had talked earlier about all the places you've gone in California on the bike.
Yeah.
What are some of your better destinations that come to mind that you revisit because you enjoy them so much?
That area above Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, across, going east or going west from the 395. What's the big bike rally? The old bike rally that happens every year up there, where the booze fighters were. What's it called? The big Harley. Just a big. Yeah, it's where the booze fight originated.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but that whole area up there is so beautiful. I mean, California is just a gorgeous state. It really is, especially to ride in. It's so beautiful. You got the rolling hills in the area I'm talking about, to the Sierras. You got obviously the one going up into Big Sur, all the way up, to Santa Cruz and up into San Francisco. Marin County is so beautiful. It's probably the coldest place I've ever ridden in the middle of August. And then you have the coast all the way up to Eureka and to the Oregon border up there. You're all leathered up when you're riding on that coast, but you drive 20 minutes and you're taking all the leather off again because it's so hot. It's the coldest place I've ever been in August. It's got to be the coldest place in the United States in August. Is that the West Coast up in Eureka, McKinleyville, up in there, Arcata, and also east of there is gorgeous. Above Tahoe, there's a couple little towns up there that were just absolutely beautiful, magnificent. Around is it not Santa Susana? Going into Redding, between Redding and Tahoe, there's some beautiful roads up there. I've just about been on every road there is in the state of California, I think, on the bike. It's a big touring bike. I ride a Ultra, Harley Davidson Ultra, and I had 4 bikes. I've got 2 now. I've got rid of a couple of them that I just weren't riding anymore. But the whole state, down here in LA, I spent a lot of time in the Santa Monica Mountains. They're short little day, trips, a few hours, but there's something about those Santa Monica Mountains that is, Calabasas and Malibu and Malibu State Creek Park and the Rock Store. And there's an old place called the Old Place. It's a restaurant up right by Malibu Lake up there. You stop and get some food. And I do that at least once a month or so. Go up in there. It's all gorgeous. California, again, is just a beautiful state to ride in.
You definitely need to have your suspension dialed though with all this heavy rain that has beaten up our roads.
Yeah.
I think as time wears on though, we know how to get around, get over, get through all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Our eyes are always peeled.
Yeah.
Right, for things in the road. Well, before we get too far into the here and now, love to hear about your motorcycle origin story.
Living in Montana back in the 70s, one of my friends, I grew up in Glacier National Park, also lived in Yellowstone for 3 years, but in Glacier, my friend had a Honda 50, and I fell in love with that little Honda 50. My parents never got us the little mini bike, but I always rode his little Honda 50 plus the Honda Trail 70, I think it was back then. So we were always tooling around on those things, and I just absolutely loved, especially that Honda 50, that motorcycle, a mini bike. So it started there. I remember a time when I was a young kid, we had a VW bus, and I just remember vaguely a group of motorcycles going by us when we were on the highway. And it was a group of Hell's Angels, I think. There's probably 40 or 50 of them, and they just kind of vroom, vroom, vroom. And I was like, Dad, what the hell was that? A little kid. And he goes, those are motorcycles. And I started seeing movies like a CC Rider and obviously Easy Rider, and I used to draw on my notebooks. Kids draw on their notebooks. I always drew this little stick man with a top hat on a chopper, and it was always a stretched front end, and I'd always draw these little things on my notebook. So I fell in love with motorcycles at quite a young age, but it was quite a while before I actually had my own motorcycle. I think my first motorcycle was I think it was a Honda GS 750. I think was my first bike that I actually owned. My brother had a Husqvarna, and he would never let me ride it, and he used to piss me off. Probably when I was 10 or 11, 12 years old, and he had this Husqvarna, and those things were such mean bikes, motocross bikes, and he'd take it out on the trails, and he'd never let me ride it. My friends actually had they had the Suzukis, the 80s, not YZs. The YZs were Yamaha. I can't remember the brand, the letters on the bike, but they all had RMs, the RM80s, the Suzuki RM80s. A bunch of my friends. I lived in Ohio for a couple of years, and we lived on, in the suburbs, not even suburbs, it's farmland in Ohio. My dad worked for the National Park Service, a place called Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. So all the kids had mini bikes, they had YZs and they had RMs. The guy up at the horse barns had an RM or a RM 400. I mean, that was just a huge fucking bike, back then.
Oh, yeah.
Watching this guy doing wheelies. And so I was always in love with motorcycles growing up. And I just said parents weren't wealthy enough to get me one. And, everybody rode them. All my friends did. So I learned how to ride those little dirt bikes around in Ohio. And I just absolutely loved it. And I finally, when I was, I don't know, I think I was in my 20s before I even got the GS 750. I think it was Honda GS 7. No, it was Suzuki. Was it Suzuki? I don't know. I can't remember. But it was my first bike I owned. And I toured around LA quite a bit on that bike. And I ended up, customizing it and putting a different seat on it, etc. But actually, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Actually, my first bike was a Sportster, an '83 Ironhead. It was called a Roadster model. It had Fat Bob on it. That was my first bike, my first movie gig that I bought or that I got. That I made a little bit of money. I bought that Roadster, that Sportster, and it was an '83. I traded it for a '59 Chevy Apache I had.
Wow.
And I know it was junk though. It was the long bed one. It wasn't the short bed. They had the back window that was, rounded. It was a nice truck, but I wanted to make money and use that truck and tow bikes, work for different, garages in the city and pick up bikes for them. So I traded them that bike, and little did I realize people wanted that Sportster, that the '83 Roadster. It was an Ironhead. So it was the last year that before the Evo came out, I believe. it ended up being kind of a collector's item, and I ended up getting rid of that too. But I traded it for a truck. I love that bike. I put a little eagle feather on it, and I tooled around LA on that bike. And then I got rid of that, and then I ended up getting the Honda 750 because I wanted another bike, and I ended up on that Honda 750. I mean, I could go on and on about this stuff. I mean, and I ended up in 2000. I ended up buying a bunch. I started making a little bit of money, and I started buying a bunch of Harleys. I had a Buell, poured and flowed the heads, did all the head, got the head work done on it. I bought it for $1,500, put like $5,000 into the motor, and then I ended up getting a Sportster Custom 1200, which I bobbed out, put apes on it. I have a Softail now, which I bobbed out. I think I sent a picture to you guys on the Softail, and I have an Ultra. I've gone through Electroglide, and now I have an Ultra, which I'm going to probably be getting rid of pretty soon. It's a 2013, so it's got not a lot of miles, but I've gone through quite a few bikes in the last decade. I'll let you guys ask me questions.
Well, here I was thinking that when you were on Renegade in '94, that Lorenzo Lamas with his Harleys was your influence, but you went 2 decades prior.
Yeah, so that was funny because it was a weird time in my life when I did that show, but I remember almost running over the camera crew on that little, I think it was a 125 or something. It was a dirt bike or something like that. And they said, "Can you ride?" And I said, "Yeah, I can ride." And I was pretty nervous. I popped the clutch and almost took out the camera crew on that on that bike. Did they have me riding that bike, or I don't think they allowed me to ride it. They just allowed me to sit on it and take off. I think it was, if I remember correctly, but I don't remember.
I think in Hollywood now, you see a fair number of actors and actresses that do ride, but maybe the insurance rider is, we don't want you to ride, therefore the stunt person is going to do the riding, right?
Yeah. Spoiler alert on my next new season of my Dark Winds. There is a motorcycle in that. They asked me, what would Jolie Porn do to kind of work through some of his stuff, his case from work, his family stuff he's going through. And I said, well, I think I'd tinker on a motorcycle. And so we built a shed and got a 49 Indian. I got a 49 Indian, and I tinkered on that the whole show. And I can't tell you any more about what happens in the end, but there's a 49 Indian in the show, which they wouldn't let me ride.
Perks of the job, though. Holy cow.
Well, you're an executive producer on that show, yeah?
Right.
So who technically owns that bike?
So the Transpo people found the bike. It took us a while, and we had actually a running bet that the bike was just in pieces. And you most of these old Indians are like museum pieces, and they don't want to rent them; they want to sell them. And we obviously, as a show, couldn't afford to buy a brand new museum piece, and nor did I want a museum piece. I wanted kind of a rat bike, an old bike that looks like it's been being worked on. And you're living out in 1971 on the reservation. You're not going to have access to, paint and parts and all that stuff. So we made it look a little bit more ratty, which it was. But we had a running bet that on the day that the couple days that we used the bike, that it wouldn't start. I bet the guys $100 that they wouldn't get that bike started, but they got the bike started. They rebuilt the whole engine and they got it started, and so they all did a good job. But what was the question? Sorry.
Oh, technically, who owns the bike?
Well, owns the bike? Yeah. So the transport department, one of the guys in the transport department bought the bike, and he was smart. He bought the bike and rented it to us. Basically. So he owns it. I can't remember his name, but he owns the bike. And I asked him if he wanted to get rid of it. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty burnt out on tooling on bikes. I tooled on those Harleys for years in my garage. And I really enjoyed it a lot. But nowadays I don't have the time to tool on bikes, and nor do I really have very much fun doing it anymore. I rebuilt that Buell, put the engine in myself. I took the heads to a shop, obviously, but I put it all together and I put it in the frame. It's kind of like a floating engine in the frame on the Buell, and so I did a lot of work on bikes, but I didn't want that Indian, just for the fact that it's pieced together. I think the frame was I don't know. The frame was a different frame. It wasn't original. Everything wasn't original. It was pretty much pieced together bike. A different seat on it. You had a Harley seat on it or something like that. But I really didn't want. I don't have time to do that anymore. Yeah. I mean, a couple of my friends. Well, one of my friends is quite a collector, and he's got a lot of bikes. Jason Momoa, and Jason's a huge, avid collector, and he's got some beautiful bikes. And but he's got people around him that can tool on those.
Yeah.
I don't have those people, so I didn't really want the Indian. And so the Transpo guy kept the Indian.
That makes sense. I mean, as we get older too, we do need to show restraint, because electrical gremlins really suck.
Yeah.
And bikes that look great but aren't running when you want to throw a leg over, that sucks.
It happened to me last week on the Softail, man. I went for a ride, and it conked out, and sure enough, it's a ground wire that's frayed and broken, and I'm on the side of the road. What do? I couldn't connect the ground wire, couldn't connect them together, so I had to cut the wire off the headlight and take that off, so I didn't have a headlight, and splice it to the ground wire, and got it started again, get me home. And I didn't want to tool on. I looked at it, I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. And I just dropped it off the shop,
Yeah.
It's a very romantic idea, I think, thinking back to when I, similarly wanted to ride or had ridden a couple times. And I see that now because I'm seeing different newer riders. I've gotten to train a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Friends express interest. I'm like, well, I've got this little bike I can show you. And there is a specific type of newer rider that thinks they're going to be really into working on bikes, myself included. And you think, oh man, I'm going to get this vintage bike, and you get an old bike for your first one. And then you're like, it kind of sucks when it doesn't work, or when the clutch is so heavy to pull, or the brakes aren't super good, and you kind of get a little disillusioned. Then you come out of it and you're like, actually, no, now I appreciate all this modern technology.
Yeah.
And you'll always love the look of those. But if somebody offered me like a Vincent tomorrow,
right,
I'd go, that's really cool, but no, thank you. I don't want the headache.
I watched a friend of mine start up a Brush Superior, and I was like, Jesus, what a bunch of work, man.
Yeah.
Oh, there's
8 steps.
There's the kicking is the last thing and the least worry, with all the other adjustments and all that. I think I had a Norton or a Triumph on the brain when I first kicked around the idea of getting a bike 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone the vintage and classic BMW route a few times, and I'm keen with those because they work.
Shims, Bob Persig, shims, Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. He talked about shims and on those old BMWs and using shims.
Yeah. It makes a difference. I mean, I think living in California, we're blessed with the roads and the weather where we can ride year round. I mean, I also know too, all the places you lived. I think you've now lived in California the longest, I would assume.
Yeah, California. I've been here for 30 years, but I've ridden everywhere east of or west of Iowa, pretty much. I mean, I've just been on just about every road west of Iowa. I haven't ridden east very much. I'd like to get out to maybe like the Cumberland Gap or something like that one day. But, it's that. What is that? The Dragon turns are down in the Georgia.
Tail of the Dragon.
Tail of the Dragon. Maybe one day, but I love the West, man. I love the desert. I love the high desert. I love the Rocky Mountains. I've been Colorado touring around so many times, and Montana, Wyoming is gorgeous, beautiful. Utah, the middle of Utah, man. Off the 15, obviously. Try to stay away from the main highways. I don't remember the highway, but going north out of Zion into Wyoming is up into the gorge up there. It's just spectacular, man. I've been pretty much everywhere in the West, on the bike, quite a few times, quite a few journeys. I think I did longest journey was probably, I think I did a month and a half on the bike, touring around, just driving, stopping and camping or getting a hotel. And like I said, I've read all of Neil's books and Ghost Rider, and the one about touring around to the different shows. Also, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I read everything he's written. He rode around on the Triumph, the Tiger Triumph in the 70s, all over the world. Can remember his name.
Yeah, Ted Jupiter.
Ted Simon. Yeah, Ted Simon.
Ted Simon's Jupiter's Travels.
Travels. I read everything he's written. That kind of got me into touring and stuff. Not on a Triumph, though. On a big Ultra, or Electra Glide, comfortable bike. I haven't done it in a couple of years. I think my last trip was out to. Well, I didn't have to ride out to Sturgis this last time. They gave me a couple bikes when I got there and cruised around on a new Indian out there. But last journey was probably 2 years ago that I've really gone out and long distance trip. I've done it with my brother. I've done it with my friends. I've done quite a trips just by myself, which I enjoy very much. But I think the next bike's going to be the GS. I think I end up on the BMW. I think I don't know yet, but possibly I want to go. I've never been on one, man. I mean, I've sat on them and never actually taken one out for a day. So,
well, the good thing for you, because you don't have the long legs like I do.
Yeah.
The GSs, for as tall as they look,
you can get them down.
You can lower them, and they're engineered and designed in such a way where it's not going to compromise the handling.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage, definitely.
Yeah. I sat on one. A friend of mine is same size as me, short guy, and he lowered his GS down and he fits it perfectly, and his feet are, flat on the ground, and that always worried me, obviously, but you can lower them down, and I'm glad to hear that it doesn't mess with the suspension at all. So. Yeah, I mean, you read about those GSs, and I worked with Ewan McGregor on a movie and talked to him a little bit about his experience. He was supposed to have those he went to KTM for all his, I can't remember the names of his journeys, down and around, and when he went from Ireland or to England to the tip of South Africa, and he's been. Have you read any of his books? Ewan McGregor's book,
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Bowman. Yeah. He went to KTM, I think, and KTM was like, "We're not going to sponsor a couple of actors to ride around the world on a bike." And so he went to BMW. So, you read about these GSs from Neil period as well, and just sounds like the right bike to go with. So maybe that's what I'll do next.
So I'm kind of a stranger to I took the one long trip with him where we actually met you in Sturgis, and that was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, across kind of the northern route, and then down to the Bay Area here, and then eventually ending in LA. We had borrowed the bike, so we picked them up, rode them over, then returned them. And that was the longest trip I'd done, both time-wise, distance-wise, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because like you said, you've gone on trips solo, with a family member, with friends, larger groups, these different things. Do you have an ideal long moto trip? Do you like being out alone more than anything else?
Every time I went with somebody, we ended up bickering at each other. We always get into it. My buddy Steve, I went up to Sturgis with one year, and we always end up, we get along and everything, but we always end up getting irritable with each other, and they want to go this way, and we look at a map, they want to take this route. And so I think being alone, I enjoy, I bonded with my older brother quite a bit on long distance trips. We videotaped one, we're out in the Mojave Desert, and, it's 115 degrees, and we're on our fucking bikes in the middle of August, which is just stupid. I watched him go into heat stroke and start talking to semis next to him, and but we bonded quite a bit. I missed the journey with my brother. We had a lot of fun, but we also fought a lot. But being, I don't know, they all have their value. All the trips that I've done. Being alone is, I like being. I spend quite a bit of time by myself. So going on a trip by myself and that fear of being by yourself, and the fear of the breakdown and all that stuff, and being in the middle of nowhere. But nowadays, you get the cell phones, you got your shops everywhere, and but walking through that fear and the initial fear of taking off in the morning and not knowing what's going to happen and stuff, I enjoyed that. And at points, I mean, I think my longest ride in one day was about 900 miles. I think I did one time, which is a long ride.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That's a very long ride. Son.
Yeah. I really got into those books, Ted Simon books. I really got into the Neil Peart books, and I enjoyed every single one of my journeys. Some of the best moments of my life were on that bike, coming into the desert in Barstow, and the sun coming down, and you got your music going in your headphones, and spectacular moments. Best moments of my life, really, to be honest with you. Now I think about it, being alone on that bike, wonderful.
What music do you listen to these days?
I listen to mainly just classic stuff, but I got into this band recently called Rival Sons. Which I've gotten to know the band themselves, and they're really, really nice guys. It's like the 70s kind of just hard rock kind of stuff. I love a lot of music. Listen to some jazz, some Miles Davis, and some Charlie Parker, and I'm just very open with music. I think kind of stay away from the hip hop stuff, but I love old Beastie Boys though. Love the old Beastie Boys, that kind of stuff. The old 90s, late 80s hip hop was fun, but pretty open with music. On the bike, just U2, Pink Floyd, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're speaking my language there. I think Henri's probably thinking, yeah, but there's these other bands,
Like who?
I grew up with a lot of that. I definitely, you passed down your musical tastes, and that was it for a really long time, and then I kind of expanded outward. But actually, I think we have a question from my mom, of all people.
Sure.
She's wondering, because she's only gone on so many longer motorcycle trips. I can't think of what the longest ride she would have been on.
The longest ride that Gene's been on, it was late May, early June of 17. I rode my BMW touring bike, my R1150 RT, solo from here down to LA, and then across New Mexico and so forth, Colorado to Wisconsin. And we hung out with family for a week or so, and then Jean joined me on the back. She flew out, and she joined me on the back, and then we retraced my steps. Curiously, that's when I first discovered Longmire. We don't have cable TV, so when it was first running, I wasn't aware of it. And as I was pulling into Colorado Springs, after having slept at the King's Inn in Las Vegas, New Mexico, not realizing that's where you guys filmed the exterior, right? I pull into Colorado Springs, stay with my friend Chris, and we go out for dinner, and he's like, hey, you want to watch something? You look a little tired. I'm like, yeah, sure. And we watched the first 3 episodes of Longmire.
Oh, cool.
And I was very taken by it. And so when I go out to Wisconsin, Jean joins me, we come back. She's hearing me talk about it, so we watched the first 3 again. And even though we were into it, again, I didn't do the research to find out that it was filmed. I knew that the stage was at Santa Fe, because 4 years before that, 4.5 years, Henri, Gene and I went to check out the school because that's where he went for a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
So we saw the sound stage, and I remember the person giving us a tour, like, Longmire, whatever. This is cool.
Yeah.
But I was into seeing the sound stage and all that.
Yeah.
So of course, as we're watching the show through the rest of 2017, right away, Gene pointed out, hey, where the reservation police office is, that's actually the graphics building where Henri spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the library. Hey, so the familiarity really kind of shrunk our world a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm getting way off track.
No,
His question was...
Well, she was just asking because I think they were packing up Gary and Brian were packing up for their most recent trip. And that's always kind of this challenge of how much do you pack? Do you ever overpack? Do you underpack? And like what that strategy is, because I know she wants to do more trips like that. And that's something that I think psychs out a lot of riders is, I'm going to get out there and I won't be prepared, even though there are stores out there. There's all these other things.
I have the big bagger. I have the Ultra with 3 bags. It's the 2 side bags, and then you have the top bag above the back. So I got quite a bit of room.
So what's your loadout? Do you feel like you nailed it?
I got it down.
Perfect point.
Yeah, I got it down. There's a quick story about a friend of mine. He was on a Dyna, and with a sissy bar. And he overpacked to a point where his shocks went and broke, snapped his shock. We were up in the middle of the desert, outside of Reno, about 50 miles up there, and his shock broke. And I'm like, he way overpacked. I mean, he had 150-pound backpack on his thing, and his shock just completely broke. So he had to ride on a broken shock, all the way to Sparks. I think it was Sparks, Nevada. And we found a shop that was open. We spent 4 hours there, and we got his new shocks on there. But as far as my packing, I have it down to a science. You got rain gear, you have a couple pair of pants, couple pair of socks, underwear, you have your computer, and you have a tent and a sleeping bag. I always have to have a pad for my tent if I camp. I usually stay at hotels, to be honest with you. I haven't camped quite very often. Camped in Sturgis for a while, but I've got it down pretty pat, and your tools. You got a little tool thing about this big, and you stuff all your needed tools in there in case you do need to pull over and fix something. I've changed jets on a carburetor at 12,000 feet in Colorado, because I was on a Sportster, and I wasn't fuel injected. It was a carbureted Sportster, and so I've had all the tools ready for to change out had all the jets, extra jets just in case that happened. It did happen. So I think I've been on so many trips, I've gotten it down to where I know exactly what I need. Tire repair kit, things like that. So.
Did your friend bring his lucky anvil or something? What?
I couldn't. I just laughed. I just laughed. I was like, Jesus. And we went on another trip after that, and he packed much less stuff. He goes, I didn't realize I don't need all this shit. Most people, they do. They overpack. That's why I say you just need a couple pair of pants, a couple of underwear, a couple of shirts, and a jacket, obviously, and rain gear is very important. I've gotten stuck in some crazy rainstorms out there. Scary to I was in the middle of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I was coming across the Tetons on that road, and there's not a tree. There's no tree. It's just flat, and then you have the beautiful Tetons. There's not a sign you can hide under. And that hail started coming down and just pelting my bike. Brand new Ultra, electric glide. I just bought it. It just started pelting the bike, and they were big. You couldn't ride in it because it would hurt too much. And there was no place to stop, and I just had to pull over and just kind of cover the bike up with a leather jacket, and hopefully it didn't get dented. But I've got caught in some cold, crazy rainstorms. So rain gear and the proper attire is very important. When going on long distance trips, for sure. I put shorts on too out in the middle of 115 degree weather, and that's the wrong thing to do. Putting on less clothes. You got to put on more clothes. You got to fully leather up. Face can't be exposed. Your knuckles nothing can be exposed out in that kind of weather. And that's just stupid riding in weather like that, pulling into Needles, California 10 o'clock at night and it's still 110 degrees out, It's like you can't ride it. And so you have to get up at 3 o'clock and ride before the sun comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we would do when we'd cross the Mojave. I learned my lesson after going through that weather a few times, It's just ridiculous. You can't ride like that. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Motorcycles are dangerous.
I know.
I got a shirt that says motorcycles are dangerous. I got it over at that Moto and Coffee, I think in Atlanta. Outside of
Yeah.
I think they closed down. They have a shirts that say motorcycles are dangerous. You go take that up to Sturgis and, you pussy, what are you talking about motorcycle? No, you don't get it. You don't get it. That's not what I'm saying,
Well, it's interesting when you talk GS, that's a whole different costume or outfit, right?
Yeah.
You start getting into possibly a one-piecer or a two-piecer with a bunch of vents, which is really smart.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just getting that proper fit and what do you do with it? And I know a lot of people that'll wear the Aero Stitch suit so they can just have shorts underneath, zip out of it, boom, then they have whatever they want to wear without having to pack extra.
Proper attire, good helmet, good gloves, good shoes, good boots. Yeah, it's very important. I learned my lessons.
I think that was the other shocking thing about Sturgis was the closer we got, the less and less safety gear we saw. And, it's such a personal thing, person to person, but fact remains, you hit the road going that fast.
Well, I've been down before, so I know. I've got without a jacket, and I've got the scars to show,
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was a road rage situation in LA. Someone took me out. I was only doing like 35 miles an hour, but still going down at 35 hurts just as much. So he took me out from behind. He thought I pulled in front of him, which I really didn't. And he kept on coming up on me, my rear end, like he's going to hit me. And I'm on this little Sportster, chopped out Sportster with apes up the ear. I'm like, okay, dude. You don't have any balls, I screamed at him, and he looked at me and took me right out. And
oh, no.
He stopped, he looked at me, he smiled, and he took off, and wasn't able to get his license or anything. So I'm laying in the middle of the road with no jacket on, bleeding off my arm. My leg was about this big. They thought it was broken, but it wasn't broken. But so it hurts going down. Proper gear is... And it's hard to do. Sometimes I just don't want to wear, a jacket, and you really got to force yourself to. And this weekend I didn't wear a fucking jacket. I was with my leather vest on and had a good helmet on at least. But the skin will mend. You know what I mean? It's those head injuries that that you got to worry about it. I've had a few of my buddies have unfortunately died on bikes. So, and most of them were head injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know that when we went back to Wisconsin, once we got into motorcycles 10 years ago, like collectively as a family, there's no helmet law in Wisconsin. Yeah. So our family, when they are somehow reminded that, myself, Henri, and my wife, Jean, all ride, they just assume that we're riding around on sport bikes with no gear. Because when you go there, I mean, you're literally seeing people riding on sports bikes.
Yeah.
No shirt,
yeah.
Backpack, sneakers, shorts.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, oh, and there's so much gear to be had. There's so many choices.
There really is, yeah. My brother was a funeral escort. So he had quite a few bikes, but he would do the funeral escorts. They look like cops, but they're funeral escorts.
Yeah.
You have to stop in the middle of traffic, get off the bike, stop the traffic. They'd be on those the Suzukis or the BMWs, cop bikes. And he went down doing, but they're geared up completely, full on body armor, chest plate, pants, high boots. And, he went down doing 60 and on his butt, just going down the freeway on his ass at 60 miles an hour. He's just sliding. Somebody cut him off into the lanes where the two people can be in. What are they called?
Like the high occupancy lane or whatever?
Yeah, whatever it's called. Somebody went into that lane while he was in it because you can ride, on a motorcycle in that lane. Took him out, and He didn't have a scratch on him, man. 60 miles an hour.
It's like the
Wow.
MotoGP racers, right? Like they're going
exactly
insanely fast, and it's all just the right armor in the right spots, the right coverage.
Yeah.
And as long as they don't get run over, and you can just slide and keep going.
Well, that's the thing, and that's probably where the PTSD came from my brother, was the fact that you're in danger in that Los Angeles traffic 8 hours a day, and he stopped. He doesn't do that anymore. He had to quit. In LA, driving is. I used to be a daily rider in Los Angeles, and I just can't do it anymore. It's too dangerous. Too dangerous. Even though I've been really, really lucky, but people are just not looking out for you in Los Angeles. And I don't cut lanes. I cut a little bit once in a while when we get full stop traffic on the 101 or something. And if I'm on the small bike, the soft tail, I'll cruise down the middle very slow. But the big bike, I don't cut traffic or anything. So, it's dangerous.
I mean, there's definitely a calculated risk. Part of the law is you lane split when traffic slows below the posted limit.
Right.
But that doesn't give us carte blanche as riders to go blasting through at 90 miles an hour, which a lot of riders can do and have done.
Yeah.
But I'm never that much in a hurry. Now, when it's really hot and you have dressed appropriately,
that happened to me yesterday, and I just sat in it, man. I had no choice. I'm just not gonna cut traffic when on a big bike like that. You can some spots and stuff, but a big ultra classic, it's just too risky. It's such a heavy bike. It's 880 pounds, and I'm a little guy, and luckily I've never really dropped that bike. I dropped it once sitting in a parking lot on gravel. I lost control of it and fell over. I couldn't pick it up by myself. I'd have somebody help me.
Not many people can. Some of those bikes.
Those are big bikes, man. They're just so heavy, and that's another reason. I know the GSs are big bikes as well, but I don't know. What does GS weigh? 550, 600 maybe.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
And you don't necessarily have to go the big boy like the big 1250 either.
Yeah.
They're making 950s, which would probably be the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
Yeah.
And then pack it up accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, do the homework, ask around, go with your gut, and I think you'll be very happy with it. Now you mentioned Jason earlier. You guys obviously met when you were either doing a movie or a show.
Yeah.
When did the discussion of motorcycles pop up?
Probably when we first met. Jason's always had bikes. I've always had bikes. We just hit it off quite well. He's a good friend of mine. He's a sweetheart of a man. We met, I think 2014 was the first time we met. I watched his, interest in bikes kind of grow in the last decade quite a bit more. And, so when we ride together, when he's in town, when I'm in town, we try to get together and just ride as much as possible. So he's a hell of a rider. Guy can ride a motorcycle. He's such a big guy, he's 6'5", and he's such a big guy, but he likes old bikes, and he just rides the hell out of them. He's a really good rider. I can't keep up with him. I don't try to keep up with him.
Have you ever ridden with his friend Terry Madden?
No.
Yeah, Terry is a guy that I knew from working for Fox Suspension several years ago. Terry races a lot of off-road, UTV, Ultra Force stuff, but he's been doing a lot with Jason over the years. I know when they shot some intro video for Harley before the Pan America, and then there was that segment where it was harkening back to the early days.
Yeah.
Terry was one of the guys.
He's done. Jay's done a lot of work for Harley, and some amazing stuff. I mean, he's always creating something. He's a talented artist, and I've liked the videos that he's in commercials he's shot for Harley in the past. They look great, especially the old the dirt tracking stuff. And those are great videos, man.
Yeah, he's got a very outgoing personality that's very infectious.
Yeah,
He seems happy in his own skin.
he is very, very much. He's good. He's a good guy to be around. He's a lot of fun. He's just a good guy. He's a good man.
My question is something that applies to what Henri and I are planning sometime in June. We'd like to ride north of here into Nevada,
Yep.
make our way into Utah, Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm. Highway 50. Right? What's the loneliest highway?
50.
Is it 50? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done 50 yet?
I've not, because when we were coming back after seeing you almost 5 years ago, we spent a couple days on the Salt Flats during Bonneville Speed Week.
Yeah.
And then we just ended up taking 80,
Yeah.
Donner's Pass and all that.
Yeah.
But everything I read about the loneliest highway, it freaks me out a little bit just because it's long and desolate, they say.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Obviously, if you're riding a Harley, you're not afraid of running out of gas.
No, exactly. If you're on something smaller and smaller tank, just get some gas and strap it to the back. I think it's I can't remember the distance. It's over 100 miles, I think, between gas stations. So yeah, the big Harley, I don't have to worry about that very often. I've almost ran out of gas once. I was up in the Rockies. Coming down, I was top of the Rockies somewhere, and I was on E, and I had 30 miles left. It was probably 50 to the nearest gas station, so I coasted down pretty much, and I got lucky. I've never really run out of gas on a Harley.
What's a good time of year to go through the Rockies?
Oh yeah,
when do the passes usually open?
When the passes open. I mean, I think Yosemite's probably open by now. Tioga Pass. Have you guys been? I'm sure you've been through Yosemite area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
395 is a beautiful ride. Owens Valley and all the way up into Tahoe and the Sierras to your left, and it's just beautiful up there. But June, July, August, summer months. You don't. I mean, I've gotten the coldest I've ridden in is probably in the 30s, 38, 40. When that's bitter cold, man, on a bike. It's just it's no fun, being that cold on a bike, and even all geared up and even with a heated vest on and stuff like that. There's no reason to be riding that kind of weather. But you're going to hit that kind of weather at in August at 12,000 feet. You're going to probably in the 40s. But you come down, you're coming down elevation, it warms up quite quickly. It's like Northern California being on that coast,
right?
Driving in the middle of August, and it's that fog, man, and that coastal air coming out. That's cold, man. And then you go take a little jar to the right, and you go up into the Oregon border up there, and it just warms up really quick.
Yeah, just give it time.
Yeah. So you get through it. But snow, I don't know about snow. I've ridden in flurries, but
yeah,
no, thank you.
Well, we were fortunate that we stopped in Red Lodge,
mm-hmm.
Montana.
Yep.
We had breakfast, and then we ended up going over Beartooth Pass,
mm-hmm.
and there was snow at the top.
That's where I almost ran out of gas. Was Beartooth coming?
Oh, really?
Beartooth. That's right. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of coasting if you're going into Wyoming. I think one could coast for 15 miles. It seemed like. Remember how the valley kept opening and we're descending.
Yeah. Might be the prettiest ride I've ever been on. Was that day of the journey?
Yeah,
it's crazy beautiful.
Yeah, that whole area is so gorgeous up there. There's so many different rides. So many beautiful places in the United States, and I think for me anyway, the West I think is the best for riding. You've just got so many different landscapes throughout the West. It's gorgeous, but Glacier is, when you can get up there when it's not so crowded and stuff. Montana's quite spectacular. But even the valley below the Tetons, below Jackson Hole, it's how these called Star Valley. It's freaking gorgeous up there, man. I just love riding in that area. Yeah.
Now, do you ever have a bike with you when you're on set in Santa Fe area? Because it seems like you've got a lot of shows that have been set there.
Yeah, I've ridden all in northern New Mexico, but not when I'm working. They won't allow you on a bike. You're breaking a contract if you get on a bike, so they don't allow me to do anything. Yeah, while I'm working anyway, I can't get on a bike. I did when I was up in Calgary, without the production knowing. I went out and rented a Harley, and I went up to Banff, and actually went over the border down into Glacier and visited St. Mary's in that area and stuff. But yeah, you're not supposed to get on bikes. People do. Actors do all the time.
Sure, that grin on your face, though. You're not supposed to get on bikes.
Yeah. You get in an accident, you shut down the production, and if you're one of the lead actors, and you cost people a lot of money. So yeah.
I heard Tom Cruise say recently, because he does a lot of his own motorcycle stunts, and someone asked him, "Is there anything that you're forbidden against doing?" And he goes, "Yeah, my contract, I'm not allowed to snowboard or skateboard." And you're thinking about some of the extreme stuff he's done on the motorcycle, especially recently.
Yeah.
And you're thinking skateboard?
Well, because a lot of that's so controlled, right? We were just kind of talking about this because who was it that just broke their femur pretty bad? You were showing me an X-ray right before we started.
My friend Brian's nephew, a downhill mountain bike race in Laguna Seca this past weekend.
People love to talk about how dangerous motorcycling is, but we were kind of talking about how for us it's this very calculated risk. You've got the safety gear, you have your training. Yeah. Obviously, traffic and other drivers is kind of this loose variable to it, but. Yeah, I tried skateboarding when I was in high school for a little bit, and I was just like, nope, I don't like getting hurt this often.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are some of those activities that, you'd think going off some jump into a canyon would be the most dangerous thing you could do, but you've got crews around you, you've got wires and all this different stuff, but
lots of
go down on a skateboard wrong. Yeah.
Lots of insurance as well. I'm sure Tom Cruise has got millions and millions of dollars worth of insurance taken out for him in all those films. That if he does get hurt, that they can reap the benefits of the insurance, the productions. So
they're crossing their fingers for either way it goes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's very true. Well, Zahn, this has been it's been very enlightening.
Yeah.
It really is fun to talk bikes with everybody. Yeah. And I know with acting is your stock in trade. I know with many of the busy people that I have in my life, almost all of them reference the creative flow that they have with motion, with getting on the bike. It doesn't take a lot. Sometimes Jean goes up into the Santa Cruz foothills here for maybe half an hour, and she comes back and she's renewed. I do these longish sort of rides with Brian, and the same thing is true. I mean, as our age, coming up on 57, I think it's good for the soul as well as the body, right? What are you hoping to gain beyond work in 2023?
Beyond work in 2023, figuring out what I want to do for the rest of my life. Seriously, figure out if I want to continue working or if I just want to, get on the bike or get in the RV and just kind of travel place to place and do that kind of thing. I don't know. To figure out what I want to do. I just don't know where I want to live. If I want to stay in LA, if I want to keep a place in LA. California is such a beautiful, beautiful state, but as you all know, it's a very expensive state. The taxes are incredibly high here. And there's places where you don't have to pay those taxes that are also very beautiful places to live. So just kind of figuring out what I want to do, for the remainder of my life. It's kind of a luxury to be in the spot where you can do other things and don't really have to worry about working. It's you can retire. That's what I'm saying. Most people retire. I can retire if I want, but I don't think I'm ready to completely do that. I miss working after a few months of not working. I really love doing what I do, and I love the craft of it and expressing myself in that way through performing art and being on different locations and the people I work with and Some days there's no other place I'd rather be other than on a movie set. Some days are different, but yeah. So just kind of figuring out what I want to do for the remainder of my life. So I'm at that age, like you guys. I'm 56, and it's getting to that time where you want to do something else or explore some other things. And I'd like to get back on the bike. I haven't for a couple of years, long distance wise, and again, I might do it on a GS and see what that feels like. We'll see.
Without getting too much into it, would any of that include being behind the camera in some capacity?
Possibly.
Like, is that a possible season?
Yeah, that's possible if we get another season on the show on Dark Winds and a season after that. We'll see. It's a lot to be a lead actor on a TV show and try to direct as well. It can be done. It's been done. My buddy Lou Diamond Phillips did it on Longmire. I watch people do it, but it's a lot. You gotta have the right people around you, I think. And don't know if I want that pressure and the responsibility. I'd rather right now just learn my lines and show up and be prepared and do that part of work, do that, to be the best actor that I can. And directing and getting yourself involved in other things might take away from some of that. So we'll see. But it's there. I just have to say yes to it. That's all.
I hear you. I've been at a kind of a career crossroads as well, and as have a lot of my 56, almost 57-year-old pals. So we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those you start reevaluating what's precious, what's important, what's a priority.
Yeah.
And those that do ride, they go, I'm going to take some time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And the gaps get filled in almost autonomously when you're doing that. The people you meet, the things you see, the aha moments, cresting Beartooth, that whole vista.
Yeah.
Is something else.
Yeah. I keep those aha moments close to me. That, again, like I said before, some of my most precious memories are definitely on that bike, cruising around.
Yeah. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a chill guy. That was a really fun interview. It was nice to get to know him a little better after meeting him briefly in 2018. Kind of, get to know somebody whose work I've enjoyed for years, and then life puts you together.
It's fun for me meeting people in person always. And I know a lot of people get a little nervous about meeting celebrities and celebrity types because their bubble might be burst with reality, whatever else. But my expectations with Zahn is kind of what we received and what we experienced. And I love the fact that he's looking for that next thing in his life, because many of us are, regardless of the age and experience. So that was very refreshing.
He was telling these stories of being out on the road alone. He very much fits that environment. He's very chill, very meditative. He's searching.
But it looks like he's definitely found it with motorcycles.
True.
Motorcycles Are Drugs is produced in the San Francisco Bay Area. Stay tuned for a season of interviews and additional bonus episodes. You can find us online at motorcyclesaredrugs.com.